Hey, what you doing there? There is a lot I could say to preface this talk, but it would be beside the point. And there are already enough of us missing the point entirely, which is the point of this talk. This is what we choose to carry. There are people who can walk through an entire season of their lives unbothered by something, and then suddenly decide that thing is the central wound of civilization. That should make us pause. Because often the outward object is not the true issue. The true issue is what has been attached to it internally. Human beings are meaning-making creatures. We drape symbols over things, fears over symbols, identities over fears, and before long we are no longer reacting to reality itself, but to the emotional architecture we built around it. This is why some people can become consumed by battles that do not materially obstruct their lives. The disturbance is not always external. Sometimes it is the ache of instability. Sometimes it is the terror of ambiguity. Sometimes it is the strange discomfort that arises when the world changes shape and one's inner scaffolding was never built to bend. And so people repeat themselves. That is one of the great unnoticed phenomena of human consciousness. Repetition slowly transforms emotion into environment. A person rehearses grievance long enough, and grievance ceases to be something they experience. It becomes the atmosphere they breathe. Their mind becomes a hallway of echoes. Echoes. This is wrong. Everything is collapsing. Disaster is near. Corruption is everywhere. Perhaps some of those concerns contain truth. That is not the point. The point is that constant rehearsal without transformation corrodes the soul. Complaint can become a kind of narcotic. It offers emotional certainty without requiring constructive labor. There is a subtle intoxication in shared despair. It creates temporary communion through mutual agitation, but agitation is not the same as purpose. People can harmonize beautifully inside a collapsing cathedral. And this is why so many people who speak endlessly about what is broken never actually build anything. To build requires steadiness. To repair requires patience. To improve requires humility. But outrage offers immediacy. It gives a person the sensation of movement without the burden of movement itself. Spiritually speaking, what we continually contemplate begins shaping the architecture of our consciousness. Fear rehearsed becomes fear embodied. Resentment rehearsed becomes identity. Doom rehearsed becomes a lens through which even ordinary life appears poisoned. A person can become so committed to anticipating collapse that they forget how to participate in existence. This is also why predictions of imminent cosmic upheaval have echoed across centuries. Generation after generation has announced that the great unraveling is near, that finality waits just over that hill, that history is gasping its last breath. Yet the dishes still need washing. The elderly still need care. Children still need tenderness. Gardens still need watering. The world, despite all proclamations of ending, continues demanding participation. And perhaps that is the deeper spiritual test. Not whether one can announce catastrophe, but whether one can remain inwardly luminous amid uncertainty. anyone can sound the alarm forever, it is much rarer to become a stabilizing presence. This does not mean pretending suffering does not exist, nor does it mean abandoning discernment. Some things genuinely are unjust. Some systems genuinely are cruel. Some cultural movements genuinely deserve critique, but there is a profound difference between discernment and fixation. Discernment illuminates, fixation consumes. One clarifies reality, the other feeds upon emotional momentum until a person can scarcely perceive anything except the object of their agitation. And misery does often seek company, not because people are evil, but because pain seeks resonance. Human beings instinctively search for mirrors. The danger is that entire communities can unconsciously organize themselves around perpetual dissatisfaction without ever crossing the bridge into meaningful creation. They become custodians of reaction rather than architects of transformation. So the question becomes very simple, though not easy. Does your way of seeing the world increase your capacity to love, build, understand, and endure? Or does it slowly convert your consciousness into a theater of recurring alarm? Because every human being is carrying something invisible through the world. Some carry bitterness like a sacred relic. Some carry suspicion. Some carry exhaustion. Some carry old humiliations stitched secretly into their identity. And some carry quiet light. The strange thing is that the world is often shaped less by the loudest people than by the steadiest ones. The people who continue tending what is in front of them, the people who refuse to turn contempt into a vocation, the people who understand that not every irritation deserves a throne in the psyche. And perhaps wisdom is simply this: to stop feeding psychic weather systems that never rain anything useful. To become more interested in cultivation than corrosion. To leave fewer emotional ruins behind you. To remember that a human soul can spend so much time announcing darkness that it forgets it was also built to carry lamps. Complainers never run out of anything to complain about. It's just so abundant. But grateful folks never run out of anything to be grateful for. Why? Because it is important to practice gratitude, to practice appreciation. Why? Because if you don't, you might not get that thing you want. But it wouldn't matter if you did. You would still be looking for the next golden goodie, because you didn't know what to do with the last one you had. I got what I wanted, but I don't want it anymore. Time to look for another one. I got what I wanted, but I don't want it anymore. Time to look for another one. Time to look for a time to look for a time. Appreciation and gratitude is the king and the queen, and you don't get much higher than that. How high? There is no ceiling to imagination, but what you deem there to be. Never have I ever seen a complainer produce wholeness, because you do not produce wholeness through complaint, but rather by working together.